Hi, welcome to my podcast entitled The Wright Experience. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of this show. I'd like to take the opportunity first and foremost to exercise a bit of a moment of silence for our colleagues in New Hanover and Winston-Salem Forsyth districts in North Carolina who are in the process of dealing with the after effects of school shootings. There is no more frightening opportunity than to deal with that experience. Our hearts go out to them, and I ask that we observe a moment of silence at this point. Thank you. I'm now in my 9th year as school superintendent and 24th as a public school educator. Over those years, I've been fortunate enough to get to know and work with some amazing leaders from all across the United States. Tonight is no exception as we have a great guest in store for you to listen to and learn from tonight. Our initial focus for this show has been on educational leaders. We'll continue to do that for a while. And then later on, we're going to expand to other disciplines in other professions. I'm absolutely excited about the responses that we received from this show and the amazing comments. And all throughout my travels, I've just been amazed to hear from you and to hear the positive comments that you've gotten from this show. This show was a brainchild of my wife, and I'm certainly glad that I took her up on that challenge to do this show. It's been absolutely wonderful, and I look forward to continuing to bring you the very best guests that I can find to teach us how to be better in our lives. Tonight is episode 26 of the Wright Experience. My guest tonight is what we call in the superintendent profession a rising star. She's taken the reins of the superintendency in Perquimans County, North Carolina, and has done some tremendous work since being there. She's very respected in our profession, and particularly our Northeast region of the state of North Carolina. And we look forward to continuing to see her reach even greater heights in the profession. It is a pleasure to work with her collaboratively to help us all employ best practices. My guest tonight is the newly minted Dr. Tanya Turner. Dr. Tanya Turner has been serving as the superintendent of Perquimans County Schools since May 1st of 2019. Prior to this, she served as assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction for Edenton-Chowan Schools. Dr. Turner began her career as a teacher in Perquimans County Schools, where she taught 5th grade at Perquimans Central School and then moved on to serve as an instructional facilitator at Perquimans Middle School. She also served as principal of Chowan Middle School, as well as an assistant principal of C&I at the same school. She moved into a role as district director of teacher development and testing, and then on to the principalship of Chowan Middle School. As principal, she led school improvement efforts to move a school that had not met growth in several years to meeting growth 8 out of 9 years, with 7 of those years as high growth. So she's absolutely a curriculum genius of sorts, and she does a great job with that. Also in her role as curriculum assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction for Edenton-Chowan Schools, Dr. Turner's knowledge of strong instructional practices and quality teaching significantly impacted schools across the entire district. As assistant superintendent, she led K-12 curriculum initiatives to impact student learning. She worked closely with school administrators and directors, not only to ensure that initiatives were implemented with fidelity across grade levels, but she also served as a role model and coach for new and veteran administrators. Dr. Turner recently completed the Educational Leadership Program at Wingate University, completing the requirements for a doctorate program in May of 2021. She also holds an educational specialist degree from Wingate University, a master's of supervision and administration from East Carolina University, and a bachelor of science in elementary ed from Methodist University. She completed the North Carolina Aspiring Superintendent's Program in 2017 and the Next Generation Superintendent Program in 19 and 20. She recently was published in EdNC for her dissertation on how school closure impacted beginning of the year readiness in grade 3. Dr. Turner is also a graduate of Perquimans County High School and resides in Perquimans County, with her son, Cole Turner. She is a member of Rocky Hawk Baptist Church and is also an adult Sunday school teacher there. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Dr. Tanya Turner. How are you?
I'm good, Dr. Wright. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I could see you as a Sunday school teacher. I can imagine that. I can imagine that. So it's a pleasure to have you here tonight. Certainly looking forward to talking with you and having our audience get an opportunity to learn from you and all the wonderful work you're doing. So tell us a little bit about the Perquimans County School District, your home district, actually, and the wonderful things that you have going on there for the benefit of staff and students.
Well, Perquimans County, I think, is the best school district, as my good friend Mr. Gatlin used to say, on this side of heaven. We have 4 schools in Perquimans County. We have a pre-K2 school known as Perquimans Central. We have a 3-5 school known as Hartford Grammar. Our middle school is Perquimans Middle School, and then, of course, our high school is Perquimans High School. This year, we're experiencing the largest enrollment that we've had since 2015. We have over 1,700 students enrolled in our schools. We're a 1A, classified as 1A as far as athletics go. And last year, our baseball team won the 1A state championship against East Surrey in Fayetteville, North Carolina, where they played the final series to win the championship. Our Perquimans High School volleyball team were the runners-up for the Eastern Regional Championship. Looking forward to seeing them make that run again this year and hopefully go a little bit further and maybe put another state championship under the high school's belt. We have not only strong athletic programs in Perquimans County, but we also have strong academic programs. This past year, we were named a National Beta School of Distinction. So we have a strong Beta Club program in all of our schools. Our teachers are very high quality in our school system. We're blessed to only have 1 teacher vacancy right now. And when you look at the state of North Carolina and the number of vacancies that are currently there, I consider our school system extremely blessed to only have 1 at this point in the school year. We've been recognized for 2 years in a row for being a National Board Certified District of Distinction because of our high percentage of National Board Certified teachers. Our AP classes have done extremely well. The year that we were closed for the pandemic in March of 2020, our AP Calculus class still maintained a 60% proficiency rate, even under remote learning. And our AP computer science class actually had an 85% proficiency rate. This past year, our AP calculus class, when we were able to be in person for the entire school year, was 80% proficient. So I feel really good about that, and really proud that our school system opened its doors last year on August 16th. And under Plan B, and we were in person and remote learning for the entire school year and never closed our doors to students. And now that our data has come out from the state yesterday, and looking at our data compared to the state average, and in most cases, we are at or above the state average in almost every area. So I'm extremely proud of that, even though we have taken some dips in areas just like everyone did due to the pandemic and the loss of that face-to-face time for many of our students. I'm very pleased with the results that we had, and that's because of our extremely dedicated staff, and not only our teachers, but all the people behind our teachers that make it possible, our custodians who keep that building clean and sanitized, and our bus drivers who have faithfully continued to drive those buses and get our kids to school, and school administrators and our clerical workers and our nurses. I mean, just extremely valuable all the time, but especially during this pandemic. It's just been a team effort, and our community has really rallied around us and supported us and encouraged us. And I think that's the beauty of living in a small county like Perquimans. We're a big family. And when a crisis happens, people pull together and support one another. So very blessed to be here. It's been my home my entire life. I graduated from Perquimans High School. So it's nice to come full circle and finish up my career here. This is where I hope to be until I decide not to be anymore. I'm entering my 30th year. This is my 30th year of education. It's hard to believe.
Okay.
So it's really, really fun to come full circle and be back home and serving my community and students here.
Awesome. Although I'm sure you're younger than I am, that 30-year milestone is amazing. You got me in terms of service, but I worked in some other places before I got into education.
Right.
So anyway, congratulations to you, and there you all are to be commended for the amazing work that you've been doing in your district, and your district was at the forefront of trying to keep school open and for kids, and so you guys are to be commended for the work that you've done down there in Perquimans for sure. So, Dr. Turner, most of your superintendency thus far, except for 7 or 8 months, seems like, has been during the pandemic. So, what lessons have you learned about yourself during this unique time in leadership?
I've learned that I'm resilient. I've learned that it's important to have a team.
Mhm.
It's important to come together as a team to make decisions and not try to do everything yourself. It's impossible. It's too big of a job to do it all alone. So that I've always known the importance of collaboration, but probably never as much as I have during the pandemic. Um, Everybody's such a key piece of the puzzle, and you can't leave any piece of the puzzle out. If you're putting together a puzzle and if you're missing a piece, the picture's not complete. There's a big hole there, and it just messes up the whole dynamic of what the puzzle should be. And I think that's the same is true here. If you leave your bus drivers and their voice out of it, if you leave the child nutrition and their voice out of it, if you leave the custodians and their voice out of it, the teachers, the administrators, the teacher assistants, the office workers, everybody, the parents, the students, everybody had such an important voice in making this work, and leaving any one part of that out would have caused something to not work properly, and our system to not experience the success that it did. And that doesn't mean we didn't make mistakes. We made mistakes, but we learned from those mistakes. I think we all learned that grace is definitely needed during a time like this, and I think that we've learned that we can do it. When things get tough, we can do it, and we're strong, and we're a strong community. And we might be small, and we might only have 4 schools, but we made a statement that we can do this, and we are here to serve our students, and our students are our why. We are an essential service, just like healthcare workers. The kids need us, and the families need us. And so we stepped up, and I'm very proud of that. So I learned that I've always known Perquimans was a great place to be, but I think the pandemic verified that.
Sure.
And it verified that this is a wonderful school system.
Yeah, you mean that other Hertford, right?
Yeah.
We won't get into that one right now. That's anyway. So, Dr. Turner, you are one of just a handful of superintendents in the state of North Carolina, at least, who have the opportunity to lead their home district. So, what do you see as the advantages of that honor?
Well, first of all, I do think it was an advantage to leave for a while. I did 10 years here, And this is where, as I said, I graduated, played ball here when I was in school, was very involved as a student, graduated, went to college, came back, was hired by my middle school principal who had been moved to the elementary school. So my middle school principal hired me as a teacher, and then he also helped me coach basketball. So we have that great bond of a friendship. And so starting my career here and then being here for 10 years and then leaving here to go be an assistant principal in Chowan County at the middle school. And then I ended up staying there 17 years and moving through various positions through those 17 years that I was there. I think that grew me to be somewhere different than where I grew up, because even though Eatonton, Chowan, and Perquimans County are side by side, both counties are very different. And you don't always know that until you make that change. So I had the opportunity to learn a lot from a lot of great people in Chowan County and experience a different way of doing things. And when it was time to come back, and I didn't know that that was going to happen. I started working on my doctorate, honestly, as a post-retirement opportunity, maybe to be able to be an adjunct professor or something like that. I was kind of thinking, I got my son out of college, so now let me explore this. Dr. Jackson, who was my superintendent at the time, he kept encouraging me to do it, and don't know if I would have done it if he hadn't have kept pushing it on me. But that was my goal, not to be a superintendent. It was for retirement and maybe becoming that professor during retirement. But when the Perquimans job opened and I came back to the county, it was like a reunion. A lot of the kids that I taught are now parents of the kids that are going to school here. Some of the kids that I taught are teachers here or are serving other positions here. Some of the grandparents were the parents of people that I went to school with. So it's been really neat to come back and see children of my children in the classrooms, and being able to see how Perquimans has changed since I've been gone, and build on what they're so good at, and then bring some new perspective of things that I learned when I was away to help them become even better. I think there's a plus to knowing your community. Because I live here and I went to school here, I know this community very well, and I'm very involved in the community and very visible in the community. And I think small school systems need that investment. Sometimes I think, and this is not a negative against anyone, but I think sometimes people come to a superintendency in a small district as a stepping stone to then move on to another district, never really intending to invest and stay there. And I think the community knows I'm invested. This is my home. This is where I want to be. So I think it builds a level of trust with me that might not be as strong with somebody that's an outsider, that they don't know if they're really in Perquimans because they want to be, or if they're just using Perquimans as an opportunity to move on to another place.
All right, outstanding. And I think the multiplicity of districts to prepare you for a superintendency is key. This is actually district number 6 for me.
Wow.
I worked in Nash, I worked in Edgecombe, Wake, Harnett, first superintendency in South Carolina, and then here. And each of those districts prepares you with a little piece, in my case, that helps me in my job every day. So, and I know that's a great joy for you to be able to do that in your home district and imparting to the lives of staff and students there. That's good stuff. So, so my next question, with your curriculum background, particularly Dr. Turner, I think this would be an amazing question to hear your response to. As schools begin to transition into post-pandemic education, I guess we're in post-pandemic. Some days I wonder, but anyway, what do public schools need to do to ensure that we're moving forward with post-pandemic education, in your opinion?
Well, I think first of all, we got to make sure that we have addressed and are taking care of our students and our staff's social and emotional needs.
Absolutely.
Um, a lot of them have been through some traumatic experiences and seen, some things during this pandemic that's probably shaken them, scared them, filled them with anxiety. In fact, I've talked to a lot of people who have had COVID, and they talk about the level of anxiety that it created within them because it creates this sense of unknown of they don't know what's going to happen. So we know from Maslow's hierarchy of needs that if people don't have that feeling of safety and their basic needs aren't met, then you can't go any further. So I
Correct.
think that's the first piece is just making sure that we're taking care of our people and their needs. Beyond that, and this is, I know you've heard of the book Good to Great. And in that book, Jim Collins talks about in order to make the leap from good to great, you have to have that hedgehog concept. What is it that you're going to be best in the world at? And everything should be focused around that. And I've always believed it, and I still believe it, that literacy is the most important um, factor in a school's success. If
Right.
you can build a strong literacy program pre-K 12,
Mhm.
then students will be successful. Students can grow, and no matter what content that is, because literacy is the foundation for everything. So if we want our students to be able to read and understand history and to think critically and respond to that, then they've got to be able to have those strong literacy skills. We want them to be able to solve those math problems. They've got to have strong literacy skills. If we want them to be able to read and comprehend and analyze and um, science, same thing. They've got to have strong literacy skills. It runs the gamut.
Right.
So with the pandemic and the time that we've been out of school, and especially for our younger children who have missed foundational years of face-to-face instruction with literacy, we've got to make up some time with that. So literacy's got to become a focus more so than ever. It always should have been a focus, but it's got to be a focus more so than ever. K-12. We've got to make sure that we're equipping our students with those skills so that they can be successful beyond high school.
Absolutely critical. That's exactly right. And by the way, you mentioned one of, if not my all-time favorite leadership book, From
Mine
Good to
too.
Great. You may not have known that, but that's one of my
I
favorites of
didn't
all
know
time.
that, but it is a
Yeah,
good one.
it is. It is. I read it. Occasionally, about once a year, I read the entire book again just to. Anyway, it's a great book.
Mhm.
Um, Dr. Turner, today's aspiring leaders are contemplating entering a world that is very different from when you and I assumed our first leadership roles. For me, my first principalship was in 2004. And I don't know when yours was, but it certainly wasn't yesterday. So, this world is very different. What advice would you give to people who are stepping into educational leadership at any level for the very first time?
Listen,
Yeah.
that's probably one of the most valuable skills that you can have as a leader. I think, Stephen Covey talks about seek first to understand, not to be understood.
Right.
And I think that as leaders, especially now, we need to, seek first to understand the people that we work with, understand the people that we serve, And sometimes that means just closing your mouth and just listening, and listening with an open heart and an open mind, and not passing judgment on the person who's talking to you, but try to truly hear them from their perspective, because their perception is their reality. And we have to understand and embrace that that's their reality, and try to respond to them with that understanding. This is their reality. Now, how do I respond to that reality? With compassion and with understanding. Doesn't always mean that we're going to agree on the final solution of whatever it is that we're talking about. But I think when people know that you have taken the time to truly hear them and understand them, it creates a level of trust that helps you moving forward. So listening, I think, is huge. Beyond the listening, I think, is seeing the big picture, um, being able to, going back to good to great, lifting up that rock and looking at the brutal facts.
Right.
You know, it might scare you to death. You might not want to look at it, but if you don't look at the brutal facts and see, don't just focus on what you're good at, but focus on where you need to improve, and be willing to say, you know what, we're not doing so well in this area. And it doesn't mean that anybody has done anything wrong. It just means that we've got to adjust, you know, and try to do something different. Or if we're going to continue to do the same thing, we're going to continue to get these same results. So, um, not being afraid to admit that, you know what, we're not good at that. And we need to make some changes, and we need to get some help in order to improve those areas. um, Being able to accept that constructive criticism. You know, if somebody comes to us, whether it's a staff member in your school system, or whether it's a parent or a community member, and they say that, you know what, you need to look at this, you know, this is not good, or we think this is a concern, not being on the defense, but be willing to, again, look at those brutal facts and say, okay, you know, maybe we do need to make a change there. But also being brave enough to stand up for what you know is right. Because at the end of the day, we've got to be able to lay our head down on the pillow at night and go to sleep, knowing that every decision that we made that day was done with the student's best interest in mind. And sometimes that's difficult, because what's best for students sometimes is not what's best or most convenient or easiest for the adults that we're working with. But the bottom line is that we're here to serve the students. So their needs come first. You know, our motto is every child, every chance, every day. Our why is our students. So sometimes that means, you know what, we have to inconvenience ourselves sometimes to do what's right for kids. So being willing to stand up and say, you know, this might not be the popular decision, but it's the right decision. And having that courage to do that, and do it with respect.
Sure. Those are outstanding points, not only for beginning leaders, aspiring leaders, but also for those vets like us out here that have been doing this a while. If this business is not about making children better, you know, and creating better outcomes, then we probably need to find something else to do, to be honest with you. So great stuff. What are you most proud of in your career thus far?
That's a hard one. I'm very proud of earning my doctorate during a pandemic.
Absolutely. Yeah,
um,
sure.
that was a big challenge. But, you know, someone asked me the other day, you know, did I regret going into education? Did I wish I
Yeah.
chose something else? And I can honestly say, um, with 100% certainty, that if I had to do it all over again, I would.
Yeah, sure.
I chose this career because I love children, and I would choose it again because I love children. And I think every position that I have held through my now almost 30 years has grown me as a person, has taught me something about myself and about other people and about leadership. And I wouldn't trade any of those positions or any of those experiences for anything. And I'm proud of all of them. You know, I'm proud of what I did when I was a teacher, and I was proud that I was recognized by my peers as, you know, teacher of the year for the school and then for the school district. And I was proud to be a basketball coach and make it to the Final Four, which is the furthest the girls had ever been in school's history, up until um, I think it was the next year or the year after. Then they ended up making it to the state championship. But I had become a mother and I had given it up at that point. But I felt like I was part of building that program of success.
Sure.
You know, seeing my middle school when I became a principal become a school to watch, and we were the only ones in the eastern region to earn that recognition. Um, you, you know, it's just little milestones along the way. I've been proud of all of them. I feel like God has um, laid out stepping stones for me, and you know, you don't see it as you're going, but when you look back, I can see that every door that was open for a reason, and every door that was closed for a reason. And I can see now that God was preparing me for where I am now. So every career, every you know, job role that I've had in my career, every triumph and every trial that I've experienced along the way has prepared me for now. And you know, I thank God for that. I know that I am who I am because of Him, and I know I have been able to do, and Perquimans County Schools have been able to do what we've been able to do because His hand has been on us, and I will continue to trust Him, um, you know, each and every day.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, and it sounds and I know from getting to know you the past couple of years that your faith drives what you do, and that's great and important for all of us. Question for you here. I love this one. How do we recruit and retain more female leaders in education? Before you answer that, you know as well as I do. Of course, you're the exception to the rule, but um, particularly in the state of North Carolina, superintendency seems to have had high turnover when it came to female leaders as superintendents, particularly in the last few years. So, how do we fix that? How do we recruit and then retain more female leaders in education, in your opinion?
Recognize talent, you know, when we see it. You know, we all know that there's those special people that we run across. And, you know, you and I were talking about one before this show began tonight.
Right. That's right.
Um, and I think sometimes women in particular who are very talented at what they do, maybe they don't want to lose them in that position. So
Sure.
they're kind of, you know, held down because they're so valuable at what they do. And, you know, they want to keep them in that position. I was blessed enough along the way to have some superintendents uh, um, to believe in me and believe that I could make the next step. When I was a teacher in Perquimans County, the superintendent at the time, you know, met with me and encouraged me to start my administrative degree at East Carolina University. And he planted the seed, and I did it. And then I got that, and um, then I had the opportunity to serve as an administrator in Eatonton Chowan schools, and the first superintendent there saw a gift in me to go to the central office after I had been only an assistant principal to serve as director of teacher development and testing and accountability. And so I went, and then I had the courage to go to him and say, I appreciate this opportunity, but I really want the opportunity to lead a school. So I think women need to speak up and say, this is what I want. How can you help me get there? And so I planted that seed with him that this is what I want. I want to lead a school. And so then he gave me the opportunity to lead a school. And I had experienced a lot of success with that. And so when Dr. Jackson came in and he saw my track record, he came to me and he was like, why are you continuing to be a principal? Why have you not aspired to go beyond that? And I said, well, I love being a principal. I've never thought about doing anything else. And he said, well, you need to think about doing something else. And then he opened up the assistant superintendent position and encouraged me to apply for it. And I did. And then he gave me that opportunity. And then Dr. Jackson continued to talk to me about you need to be a superintendent. I don't want to lose you, but you need to be a superintendent. So every time a superintendency opened up in the area, he'd come to me,
Right.
and he'd say, guess what? There's a position open. I said, I don't want it. And he's like, well, I'm just telling you. I said, I don't want it. But then when he came and told me about Perquimans, I was like, I got to think about that. That's my
Sure.
home. And he said, well, I don't want to lose you, but I'm behind you 100%. If that's what you want, then I will help you get it, with everything that I have. So there were key people along the way who believed in me and encouraged me and pushed me. And I think that's important. And then I think it's also important to recognize in ourselves what we want and be bold enough to say, this is what I want. Can you help me get there?
Yeah, and to not be afraid of the challenge as well. And any good leader, any good leader, you talked about our colleague Dr. Jackson encouraging you and serving as a mentor and pushing you to aspire to go to the next level and other people. Um, Good leaders, everyone, you have to continue to seek talent and not be afraid to have that talent promoted. That's one thing I strongly believe in. In fact, I'm proud of the fact that one of my guests a few weeks ago, in fact, served with me in South Carolina, and she is now superintendent in a district that's larger than mine. I'm not mad about that. I'm actually proud of that. Probably because of some conversations we had to say, hey, you got to get out there and get it. So we all need that, male, female, um, African American, white, Latino. All of us need encouragement. But you also, as you said, I think that's a key. You got to act on it. You can't
That's right.
just somebody tells you that you're ready. You can't keep telling them no either. So
And your
great,
heart's
great
got to
stuff.
be in it. If your heart's got to be in it, because
Sure,
there's been some
sure.
positions along the way that have been offered
That's right.
that I could have taken it because it would have been like a feather in my hat,
Sure.
but I knew it wasn't right.
Yeah.
So, it's finding that right match too.
And that's also back to what you said earlier. That's also where your faith comes in. Pray
That's
about
right.
it, and yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Turner, are there any other aspects of your position that we've not talked about tonight that you would like to comment on at this time?
The only thing that you mentioned recruiting and
Sure.
retaining female leaders. It made me think about recruitment and retention of just our teaching staff.
There you go.
And
Right.
I think as leaders, whether we're talking about school administrators and us working with them, or whether we're talking about us working with them so that they can work with their staff, I think we have to remember, especially in Northeastern North Carolina, that we need to coach people up.
Sure.
I
Absolutely.
hear a lot of people talking about coaching people out. I don't like that. We're not about coaching people out. Nobody comes to work, I don't believe, ever to say, you know what, I'm getting up today and I'm going to go to that middle school and I'm going to do the worst job I can possibly do. I just don't believe that happens. I
Sure.
believe stuff gets in the way. I believe life happens. I believe there's gaps in learning and skill sets. And it's up to us as leaders to recognize what those gaps are and help that person fill them. And yes, sometimes that means someone has to move on to something else because we just can't seem to make it work. But to me, I am so proud of when I can take someone who's struggling and work with them and get them to the point where they can be successful. Just
Mhm.
like teachers in a classroom, if a student is struggling, the teacher doesn't say, "Well, I'm just going to get rid of them." That student is in their classroom, that student is under their charge, and that teacher is responsible whether that student is successful or not. I feel like leaders need to feel that same way about their staff. We are here to develop them and help them to be the best that they can be and provide them with whatever support, whatever coaching, whatever resources. We pull all the stops out so that we can say at the end of the day, we gave them everything that we have. So in a time when teachers are short and all positions, classified, certified, it doesn't matter. We got to take care of our people. The human resources are our most valuable. Forget money, forget everything else. People are our most valuable resources. And we have to develop them and help them to be successful. Because if we can do that, we've got them and they're going to be ours, for a long time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Turner. Just amazing insight. Hold on with me for a minute. We'll be right back to close out the show. My guest next week is Dr. Chris Mansfield. Dr. Mansfield is a retired North Carolina superintendent. He's also the executive director of the Northeast RESA, which is an acronym for the Northeast Regional Education Service Alliance, which is a conglomerate of 18 school districts in northeastern North Carolina. Dr. Turner's district, as well as mine, and 16 other districts are a part of the Northeast RESA. Dr. Mansfield has served as the executive director of the group since his retirement almost 2 years ago. I absolutely look forward to the experience of having him on next week. Dr. Turner, I'd like to thank you so very much for being my guest. I appreciate your willingness to be a part of the Wright experience. And on a personal note, I want you to know that I enjoy and admire the leadership perspectives that you have. You're definitely an outstanding leader, and I'm sure that PQ is definitely proud to have you. First time I saw that acronym, PQ proud, got a little chuckle out of that, but that's pretty good. And we'll let you have the Hertford name for now. That's all right for your town. That's a confusing thing for people. The town of Hertford is in your county,
Yes.
and the name of our county is Hertford County. But anyway,
Yes.
good stuff. Thank you for being a part of the show tonight.
Thank you for having me. I really feel honored.
And to the audience tonight, thank you for watching the Wright Experience. Good evening.